Well, Edward Heath, we've got with us tomorrow morning's newspapers, and on the front page of them, they say conflicting things. The Sunday Times has Tories plot to dump Heath, and the Observer says the Tories seal a peace pact with Heath. Now, you're the man at the centre of it all. Could you perhaps tell us which is true? Are you being dumped by the Tories, or have they signed a peace pact with you over Europe? What exactly is going on?
I haven't noticed either, actually. This is news to me.
But what precisely is your view about us and Europe, and what do you think we as a nation ought to be thinking with us on the verge of the elections?
Changed at all. The future of Britain lies in the European community, and our job is to be positive and constructive as far as everything is concerned. Now, that means that we accept what we did when we signed the treaty, which is that we work for an ever closer European unity. It's going to happen whether we like it or not, with the single market, and we shall then come on to the single currency and the central bank, and we shall come on to the rest which follows, because Europe is going to have a defense policy. This is becoming more and more clear. And with a defense policy, you have to have a foreign policy to tell you who your enemies are, otherwise you can't have a defense policy. And if you're going to have a foreign policy, you've got to have a political unity which can deal with these things. Everybody else in Europe understands it, and this is what we started when we went into the community. So, as far as that is concerned, my position hasn't changed, and as far as being dumped is concerned, that doesn't worry me in the least, because everybody knows what my position is. Now, where do we go on from there? There's a lot more to be said than that.
Well, indeed there is, but first of all, I would quite like to understand what, if anything, is going on. I mean, according to one set of newspapers, the form the dumping is going to take is that they're going to take you off the Conservative Group for Europe, which apparently you head as president now.
Yeah.
Are you saying that you're not aware of any such move?
No, I wasn't aware of that.
You hadn't heard of any such thing?
I think they'd have some difficulty. If they want to do that, that's up to them.
Yes.
But it's a retrograde step, which I think is disastrous.
And you haven't been informed that...
Not the least, no.
No. What about the peace pact? The version we have in The Observer is that they're very concerned about your criticisms of the official party line, and they feel that they're going to do badly in the election, and therefore they've signed a sort of peace pact with you. Again, is that a sort of highly coloured version of reality, or are you indeed going to make a statement on Tuesday suggesting that...
I'm not going to make any statement at all. It may be that they are more concerned about that. I think this probably arises from the Prime Minister's statement on Thursday afternoon in the House of Commons, that I had the vision to take the country into Europe, which astonished everybody in the House of Commons, coming from her. And I restrained myself. So I think that's probably come from that. But when it comes to the differences, then there is undoubtedly a difference. And it's one which the Conservative Party hasn't in the past had. And this emerged from the Bruges speech, which was entirely unnecessary, didn't need to make it, didn't need to cause controversy inside the party or inside Europe at all. Had absolutely no point in it. But it was made.
Why do you think there was no point to that speech?
Well, what was the point in it?
I thought she made some very important points on the nature of the community, on its trade policy, on its course towards integration, what it should and should not do. And moreover, I thought she spoke, some of the things she said, though many European heads of state or government will not publicly praise her for it, were things that they think too.
For instance?
Well, in my experience, this is completely wrong.
Yeah.
There is no head of state or government in the European community who shares these views. I know them pretty well. I'm in constant contact with them.
Well,
I see them and I talk to them, and it is not their view.
Surely Mr. and Ms. Mitterrand and Mr. Kohl do not want a Europe where all sovereignty has been submerged into one gigantic Brussels bureaucracy. That's one point.
Oh, now here you are. You see all the usual cries. The gigantic Brussels bureaucracy. It isn't gigantic, and it isn't responsible for decisions.
Yes.
It's governments which make decisions. And when you come to the question of Kohle's view and Mitterrand's view, then they are exactly opposed to Mrs. Thatcher's view. And the plain fact is that Germany and France now are closer than they've ever been in history. And they are close in forming a defense policy, in addition to all the things for which the community is responsible.
I beg to disagree. I mean, surely neither Mr.
How can you disagree about the closeness of France and Germany over defense policy?
Because I know what the defense policy looks like, and I know what we have is a brigade where each of us puts in 2 battalions, and then these battalions don't even speak to each other because they don't know each other's language, and they don't even share the same ammunition and their assault rifles. So that's how far we have gone down the road.
It's the first stage.
Right. We don't even share the same ammunition at this point.
No, but it's the first stage.
Good.
Anyway, Germany doesn't have a defense policy at the moment.
No.
The French policy
But
seems
why do you
intended
object
to
to it?
mask that.
No, what I'm saying is that, there's all this rhetoric and cant about how we're all good Europeans, and there's Maggie Thatcher, who is this nasty woman who throws all these Spaniards into the works. And my point is that Maggie Thatcher fulfills a similar role to that of de Gaulle 20 years ago.
And what happened to de Gaulle?
Everybody could genuflect.
He got nowhere.
He
was defeated.
He's dead now.
Thrown out of his country.
He's even seriously dead. He's even seriously dead, but that's not his problem. But everybody could genuflect on the altar of European unity, knowing that de Gaulle would come and shoo them back with a majestic no. And so in a way, Mrs. Thatcher has become the point woman, saying all these things about how we don't want to be a Leviathan, how we are not going to submerge our cultural identities in this huge European stew, which allows everybody else to be a good European, but thanking her silently for saying these things which everybody else believes too.
But who has ever suggested we should lose our identities in this?
You
It's
suggested
just
you want
nonsense.
a huge...
Absolute nonsense.
It doesn't work that way.
It
you
doesn't,
see.
no.
I remember when I was called up in the army and we all arrived wearing different clothes and looked sheepish at each other. And then we were forced into identical uniforms, and at last our personalities emerged. Yes. It has exactly the opposite effect. Human nature becomes more assertive if one method of expression is taken away from it. And I must say, Europe is, to my mind, I'm already in it, so I'm speaking from a completely different point of view. I don't want to convince anybody. I didn't learn any language until I was an adult, until Europe was already a reality. I played in Germany, and in Italy, in Italian, very badly, but I've done it.
You're not in the European community, you're in Switzerland.
No, I'm in Paris too.
I see, but we see Europe as...
No, you're talking emotionally. Europe is already a reality.
Of course it
unlike
is.
What,
of course it is, but then
unlike what Mr. Joffe says. It is, and in point of fact, we're waiting with great patience for the politicians to catch up with us.
Oh, but that reality is very different from the political reality of Brussels and the regulations that keep coming out of it. Brussels, it's like a test tube baby. It's simply an idea. I mean, the reality you're talking about has almost no connection with what is happening in Brussels, where a set of people who seem to be dominated by rather dirigist ideas dating back largely to the 50s and 60s keep on trying to integrate institutional practices totally unnecessarily, because in an important sense, as you say, we are already in Europe, and that's the crucial point.